Hey y'all, it's Sabrina. So today I'm going to do a video on advice to NCCC team leaders. I was an NCCC team leader twice, once in the Pacific region and once in the North Central region. So trust me when I say I have a lot of experience under my belt when it comes to being in this role. I broke it down to a list of 10 things that I think will help you out as you are learning your role as a team leader and as you're going through your role as a team leader. Each piece of advice I am gonna dive into. I did reach out to some of my NCCC team leader friends to help me kind of cultivate this list to pick out the things that you really should think about when you are in this role. Now, some of the things I'm gonna talk about, you're not gonna understand right away. Being an NCCC team leader, it's one of those gigs that you don't understand unless you've done it. Once you've started your year or going through your year, the things that I'm saying are gonna make more sense to you. But as you go in, try to keep them in mind because I'm hoping some of the advice that I can give you will help you out as you're learning your role and as you're going through your year. Because honestly, being a team leader is an extremely hard job. It's extremely challenging. It's also a very rewarding job. Once the year is all said and done and you look back on your time, you'll realize how far you've come, how much you've learned, and what skills you were able to develop. Being a team leader is a lot more than learning how to drive the van or just making sure you get the team where they need to get. For some of your teammates, you're more than just a team leader or a supervisor or a boss. You're their mentor. You're someone they're going to for advice. And by the middle of the year or the end of the year, you're gonna be their reference point. This is a difficult job and there is so much more that I wish I could give you, but I think for purposes of this video and to keep things as short as possible, we're just gonna go with 10 takeaways that I'm hoping will help you out as you're going through your journey as a team leader. Number one is do not compare. Do not compare yourself to other team leaders. Do not compare your team to other teams. Your leadership style is gonna be way different than your best friend's leadership style. Your team is gonna be completely composed of different people from different places with different backgrounds than the other team. What schedule works for one team doesn't work for the other. How one team get along is not how another team is gonna get along. If you sit there and you compare yourself to other team leaders and your team to other teams, all it's gonna do is it's gonna upset you and it's gonna frustrate you. Of course, as a team leader, one of your jobs is to figure out the different learning styles that each member of your team takes on. Sometimes this is gonna be really easy to figure out. Some people, it's gonna be a learning curve, and that's totally fine. You can do your best all day to be the leader that the individuals on your team expect or need, but at the end of the day, you need to be the team leader that works best for the team as a whole. Every team is gonna have its own strengths and weaknesses. Every team is gonna have its own learning curves. Do not compare because all it's gonna do is frustrate you. And if you're a core member who's watching this video, same goes to you. Don't compare your team to other teams. Don't compare your team leader to other team leaders. Everybody is different. It's figuring out how to work with what you have and figuring out what works best for you and your team as a whole. Number two is find the line. It's super easy when you first get your team to be super excited. You wanna make sure they're doing well, they have everything they need. You wanna make sure that they are excited to be there. Just remember, you are their supervisor first. So helping them out is all well and good, but remember your place in a sense that you shouldn't be holding their hand and doing everything for them. They still are adults. They need to figure out life for themselves as well. You're there to guide them, not walk them through life step by step. Along with finding the line, it can be extremely hard in this program to figure out how to act with your team sometimes. What do I mean by that? As a team leader, you're their team leader. You're their supervisor. You go to work, you make sure everybody's safe, everybody's working, everything's going as planned. However, in most jobs, when you're finished with the workday, you leave your team, you go home, you deal with what you need to deal with, you de-stress, you hang out with your friends. In NCCC, you do not do that. You go to work with your team, you drive home with your team, you do PT with your team, you eat dinner with your team, you do team meetings with your team, you go to bed next to your team because you live in the same house with your team. You are always, always, always with your team. As a team leader, you need to be able to find that balance between what is being a supervisor and what is being a friend. And that can be extremely hard, especially when the people that you're eating dinner with and hanging out with, you're also supposed to be their supervisor. And if you're buddy-buddy with them at the end of the day, sometimes that can blur the line for them as well. Not everybody can find the right time to figure out when it's appropriate to be a supervisor and when it's appropriate to be more of a friend. And a lot of core members won't understand that line too. If they see you goofing around with them, they may not understand that when you're on the work site, it's not buddy-buddy time. You are their supervisor, you're in that role. So in order to find that balance, it's just making sure that you are communicating appropriately, you're not crossing any lines or any boundaries. Again, that's something that can be hard to do. To help kind of figure out that line and alleviate that stress, Let's jump into number 3. My third piece of advice is to make connections with Team Green. Now, what is Team Green? You may not know if you haven't started your team leader training. The team leaders in NCCC wear green shirts, so they're known as Team Green. Year after year, they refer to the team leader team as Team Green, so it's something that should be normalized across campuses. This is the number one piece of advice I feel like people give you as a new team leader, is to lean on Team Green, make connections with them, because they are your support system in this. When you're having a rough or stressful day, things aren't going as planned, something comes up, the people that are gonna understand you most are the other team leaders that are doing the exact same job as you. Now, maybe they're not facing the same issues or the same problems that you are. Eventually they're going to get to that point. Knowing that you guys are all going through the same thing, you're gonna be able to lean on each other for the support, run ideas by each other, or just straight up vent. I said it before, I'll say it a million times. Being a team leader, you really don't understand what it's like until you've been a team leader. And there's no one better to support a team leader than the other team leaders that you were going through the program with. And it doesn't have to be the same 2 or 3 team leaders that you go to every time. Make connections with all of Team Green if you can. You don't have to be best friends to support each other. Just being a shoulder to lean on, it really does make all the difference when you're out in the field. If you haven't already, start a group chat. Both my years, we had group chats with all of the team leaders across campus, and it was fantastic. That way you're able to connect with each other, see what each other is up to, what type of service you're doing, what type of stresses you're having, ideas to relieve that stress. Send funny memes to each other, brighten up each other's day, or figure out where you are on your project so you can meet up together. This group of green is really going to be helpful. They are going to be your ride or die throughout this program. Number 4 is that your team members are coming from all walks of life. I've said this in my other video, but when you join this program, a lot of people are gung-ho about service. That's one of the main reasons I joined the program. I wanted to get out in the world and learn about the different issues that face communities and the different service work that I could do to help alleviate those issues. When you go through your Team Green training, most of the team leaders you're with are going to be on the same level with you. They're going to want to be there to make connections, learn leadership skills, network, do community service, but that doesn't mean every or even any member on your team is going to want to do that. Some of the team members you're going to have, it's going to be their first time away from home. Maybe they're there for the education award. Maybe they're there because they have no place else to go. Maybe there's someone who has never met somebody who doesn't think just like them. You're going to have members who are super experienced with some of the tasks you have to do with service work. And again, some members who have no experience at all. None of this is a bad thing. Just know that as the leader of the team, as their supervisor, it's not your job to kind of make them super passionate about service, but it is definitely your job to try to cultivate that appreciation for service and help them accomplish the goals that they set out to do when joining this program. I'm also saying this to kind of prepare you, to let you know that everyone has different ideas about how this program is. And this also goes back to what I first said about how every team is different. Every individual in this program is different. They're here for different reasons. They stay for different reasons. They have different goals and ideas of what they want their year to be and look like. Definitely figure out what that is, what drives them, what they're passionate about, and you can help cultivate that passion. And going off that, you may get core members on your team who aren't goal setters, who really aren't here to achieve anything and kind of just want to go through the program. Yes, you can do your best to get them excited about things, cultivate their passions, and develop goals, but at the end of the day, don't take it to heart if they're just somebody who isn't a goal setter. Yes, do your best to reach them, be that mentor, be that support, be that supervisor, but don't take it to heart if you can't reach everyone on your team. You can give someone all you've got, but if they're not willing to meet you halfway, or they don't want to meet you halfway, that's not a negative reflection on you, as long as you just do the best you can. All you can do for them is your best. Number 5 is it is way easier to start off strict. It is going to make life in this program 10 times easier for you if you make sure your team knows the rules and is following the rules pretty much to a T right from the start. And this really is good to know for any job. It's way easier to be a supervisor or a boss that starts off strict and loosens up where they need to as time goes. Because if you start off loose and don't really care too much about many things, your team is gonna see that and they're gonna run with it. If later down the line, all of a sudden you realize your team's been breaking a rule and now it's a problem, you're in trouble because they're not gonna care. You let it slide for the entire first round. Why would they think that you would be serious about wanting to enforce it for second round? I'm telling you, it's gonna make your life so much more easy. And if you are a team leader who is at a campus where you switch teams each round or you switch teams halfway through the year, please go into your year, start off with your team with the thought in mind that you're gonna pass off this team later down the line. It's gonna be 10 times harder for the team leader who gets your team or people from your team if you were a team leader that let all the rules slide. Because now the team leader has to enforce these rules on a core member that didn't have to listen to it before. And at the end of the day, you're really just setting your core members up for failure if you're not holding them accountable. That leads me right into number 6. Make sure you are holding your team members accountable. What does that mean? So at the start, it's really easy when people show up late all the time during training or accidentally sleep through. You know, they're making mistakes, they're readjusting. It's totally okay to be like, hey, like you slept in, I'm not gonna write you up right now, but you need to make sure that you show up time. Or hey, you fell asleep during a training. That's not okay, can't happen again, but we're gonna let it slide this once. Things like that, okay, that's a reprieve, that's understandable. But you as a team leader need to make sure you're jotting notes down to know how many times the team member is doing this. Now this may seem frustrating to the core member, and it may seem annoying to the team leader because it feels like extra work. However, as the team leader, it is your job to be holding your core members accountable, making sure they're following the rules and holding them to the same standard that you are holding every single one of your core members to. If you're not holding your core member accountable when they fall asleep during a training, you're not being fair to them because they're missing stuff that may need to be there for. They signed up for this program, they said that they were gonna be there, and part of the program is the training that they can't sleep through. You're doing a disservice to your entire team by letting that one member sleep through a training that all the other members are trying to pay attention to. That's not fair to your entire team. Unless you're gonna let them all sit there and sleep through the training, don't let just that one member do it. Now, later down the line, what is going to come into play is you are gonna get frustrated and not wanna handle other situations. Yes, I very much subscribe to the idea of choosing your battles, but you need to be careful which ones you're choosing. If something's really not worth fighting over and you can let it go, fine, but make sure you don't let it go 20 times and now the 21st time you're gonna write somebody up and you're gonna be upset for it. If you wanna let something slide once, let that member know, hey, I saw it, I'm letting it slide, let's do better next time. The next time that happens, maybe you should write them up. Obviously, every situation is different. Honestly, no team leader wants to have to write core members up because, to be honest, it's just more paperwork for us. And at the end of the day, we don't want your name written all over a bunch of disciplinary papers. We want you to succeed in this program. However, if members aren't following the rules, it is your job as a supervisor to make sure that's documented and the right steps are taken in order to deal with that situation. Because again, it's not fair to that individual and it's not fair to that team. Number 7 is to explain yourself, but don't defend yourself. Maybe there's a situation where a core member shows up late. You know why that core member's late. Maybe it's a private matter, like they had to go pick up a prescription or they're having family troubles and they need to get in touch with their mom or their dad or someone back home. You and that core member, those are the only two people whose business that is. If someone on your team comes up to you after and says, hey, why didn't you write so-and-so up, or why didn't you talk to them? They were late. That's favoritism, that's not fair. You do not, and you should not, tell that person that other core member's private business. That's not their business whatsoever. However, if you say something like, don't worry about it, or it's not your business, 1, that's not a very professional way to deal with that situation. And 2, you're not doing yourself or the other core members any favors because they think it's favoritism. All you have to do is let them know that you had a conversation with that core member beforehand. You knew they were gonna be late, you knew the situation. That is one thing that I super struggled with in the program. Core members are not gonna see everything that goes on behind the scenes. You're gonna know a lot of things, and it's your job to actually keep it private in order to respect your core member as an individual. So it's fine to explain yourself. I used to tell my team, like, always ask the why. Like, if you're not sure why I did something, come up to me and say, hey, why did you do this? I'm not gonna get offended, I'm not gonna get upset. I'll explain to you everything that I can, and I'll let you know there's some stuff behind the scenes that I cannot discuss with you, and I'm sorry, but that's just something that you're gonna have to accept at the moment. If you need to, bring up, hey, if you had a private matter, would you want me to discuss it with the team? I'm sure the answer is no. One of the things that you're gonna have to deal with a lot is confidentiality and knowing how much you need to tell the team. Now, that's not me at all saying you need to be secret about everything. It really is up to you and how your team runs on how you're gonna communicate with them. I personally tried to be as clear as I could with my team and as transparent as I could. I think transparency is key. It's kind of up to you in each situation of how transparent you should be. But till this day, there's dozens of things that happen on my team that if I talk to my members now, they'd probably still think it was favoritism when really there was other stuff going on. And even though the program's over, I'm still gonna keep that confidentiality with the other members. So another thing you're gonna have to deal with as a team leader is learning how to appropriately explain the situation, but don't feel like you need to disclose anything that you shouldn't be, and don't feel like you need to defend yourself. Something else that goes along with the explaining and not defending is you're gonna make decisions that are for the good of the entire team. As much as you're gonna wanna make decisions that are gonna make each individual happy and pleased, you can't do that. You need to think of the team as a whole at the end of the day. Your core members are not gonna agree with you every time. Other team leaders might not agree with you every time, but it's up to you how you run your team, and it is up to you which decisions are made. Again, people are gonna disagree. You don't have to sit there and defend yourself. It's okay to say, listen, this is how it is. Because to be honest, sometimes it gets very tiring, even if you're someone who's trying to be transparent as possible, to explain every little detail of the whys of the situation. Sometimes it's nice just to say, guys, we're breaking for lunch at 12, and that is that. Number 8 is to use your working hours appropriately. I've explained in my videos before, as an NCCC member, you do more than just the regular 9 to 5, 5 days a week. You come home, you have team meetings, you have team dinners, you have PT. There's a lot more to it. Now, as a team leader, you have all that, but you also have other paperwork you have to do. You have meetings with your unit leader or meetings with the team leaders on your unit. You may have to meet with a supervisor. You're gonna have tons of other paperwork that you're gonna have to do. This is also something I super struggled with. I love the work in NCCC. I loved being on the site. I was also always afraid to leave the site because if something happened, I wanted to be there to be able to take care of my core members. This means my paperwork came after work. So with those meetings and PT and all the other stuff I had to do, I was waiting until after hours, sometimes up till midnight doing paperwork, or I'd spend my Saturdays or my Sundays, depending on how much I had to do, sometimes my whole weekend just doing paperwork, closing out old projects, talking with new sponsors, getting ready for the next setup. It's a lot of work. Now, one thing I could have done, and I definitely should have, is actually doing that paperwork during my work day. And what I mean by that is taking an hour during the work day while we were building a house or pulling invasive species to step off the site, either go to a coffee shop or to the office and do an hour or so of paperwork. Now, I did do this probably every 3 weeks or so. I'd step off the site for a couple hours. I think maybe twice of each year I had to go for a whole day because of specialized projects that there was so much more to do with it. But as a team leader, I could have done that a lot more, and it probably would have taken a lot of stress off of me and would have gave me a lot more time to myself and to de-stress and to relax or to explore the community that I was in. Now, saying this, also keep in mind that as a team leader, it is your job to be on site. So please don't take what I'm saying and run with it. I'm saying use your time on the work site accordingly. If you have to do paperwork, you don't have to wait until 10 o'clock when it's finally time for bed to do any of it. Take an hour during the day, go sit in the office of your sponsor, go sit in the van, get done what you need to get done. You should still be in the field. You should be working. A team leader should be leading by example. Any supervisor should be leading by example. Nobody wants to follow a supervisor who's never on site and who's never working alongside their team. What I'm saying is find a healthy balance. Now, this leads me into number 9, which is to take time for yourself. Out of the 2 pieces of advice that are always overused for team leaders are to 1, lean on Team Green, which we already talked about, and 2, to take time for yourself. Now, this is something that you can forget, especially if you're a very dedicated team leader. You need to realize that first and foremost, you are a human being. You wear a ton of hats in this program, you really do, but you need to remember at the end of the day who you are as a person and what your needs are. That may mean hanging out in your room for the weekend, or meeting up with another team leader, or going to the movies solo, taking a break from your team. Make sure you are finding time where you can just be yourself, you can de-stress, you can connect with your friends and family back home or on other teams. Times when you're not thinking about all the paperwork you have to do, how the project's going, what your core members need. You're just focusing on what you need. Pick up a new hobby, pick a TV show to binge, go explore the community solo, hang out in a coffee shop and just blog all day. Make sure at the end of the day, you are still saving time for you. And this may be one of those that you're like, well, duh, that's obvious. But honestly, when you're in this program, you get so busy and you end up having so much to do that you really do forget that you need to take time for yourself. Obviously, you need to attend to pressing matters, but take a second and judge how pressing are those matters. Can they be done in the next few hours? Can they be done tomorrow? I'm not saying procrastinate. I'm saying actually schedule in time to have you time. Trust me, you're gonna need it and you're gonna be happy that you had it. Number 10 is own up to it. As a person, you're not perfect, and that's okay. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes in this program. There's learning curves for you. You're gonna be in situations you've never been before. And sometimes the struggle really is that you feel like you should know how to handle every situation because you're leading this team. Guess what? That's not a reality, and that is okay. When you make a mistake, it is completely fine to own up to it. If you're someone who did let a rule slide, like we talked about, and you realize this is taking effect on your team, it's not okay. Gather your team up. Tell them, hey guys, listen, I've been letting this slack, not okay on my part. This is something we need to figure out. I'm sorry, my bad, we need to start over with it. They're gonna respect you so much more. Personally, for every supervisor I've ever worked with, in my opinion, the ones that I remember most and respected most are the ones when I went to for help and they said, I don't know, let's find out together. Or, hey, I'm sorry, my mistake, this is actually how it should be done. I respected them as a person and as my supervisor. And this is something you can do in any supervisor role. It's completely okay to make mistakes. We learn from them, we move on from them, and we know what to do next time. So as a team leader, if you make a mistake, it's okay, just own up to it and encourage your team members to do the same. Now, I know I said I was gonna do 10, but I'm actually gonna add a number 11. To sum this all up, my 11th piece of advice of things that I think you should know before you're a team leader is it will be worth it. This is a very challenging role. You wear many hats, you do many different things, but you're also going to so many different new places. You're getting to live in communities that you've never heard of before. Meet people that you're gonna be able to network with and make connections with and speak to years down the line. You're gonna be able to learn all of these new skills and you're gonna be doing so much for the communities that you're working with, even if you don't know how much at the time. You're also gonna learn so much about yourself, who you are as a person and who you are as a leader. It's definitely a year that you're gonna think back on years to come. There's something special about NCCC, there really is. There's a reason I did it twice. So please don't take this video as a, this is the toughest job ever, never do it. Not at all what I'm saying. This is one of the most challenging jobs. It's definitely the most challenging and the hardest job that I've ever had. But you know what? It's also probably the job that made me the person that I am today. I'm not trying to get sappy, but it helped me learn a lot about myself, a lot about people. So when you go into your year, yeah, take these things with you. Don't take them quite to heart because you might not face all of these. You may face every single one of them. Just know that at the end of the day, when the program's over and you walk across that stage, you completed this year, you took on the challenges, you led a team to tons of different states across so many different projects. This year will be worth it. So that wraps up for this video. If you are a team leader or you were a team leader and you have some advice that I didn't mention, please put it down in the comments below for other prospective team leaders to see. For those of you who are aspiring to be team leaders or you're about to start your journey, good luck. I hope your year goes extremely smooth and that you learn a lot from your journey. Until next time, I hope this helps.